Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the evidence around us seems contrary to the promises we've been holding on to. It's easy to believe when the signs are clear, when everything's falling into place and the path forward is lit up. But true faith isn't about what you can see, it's about what you know deep down in your spirit. Let me remind you today, even when there's no sign, you can still believe. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. It's the foundation of our relationship with what we cannot fully grasp or comprehend. Many people find it easy to believe when the path ahead is clear, when there's a sign or confirmation to hold on to. But what happens when there's no sign, no indication that things are going to work out, and no evidence to suggest your dreams are on the way? That's where true faith begins. It's in those moments of uncertainty that believing becomes more than just a choice. It becomes a deep conviction, rooted not in what you see, but in what you know. Faith is about stepping into the unknown with confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you trust the one who does. Think about a farmer who plants seeds in the ground. He doesn't immediately see results. The soil looks the same for days, even weeks, but the farmer doesn't question whether the seeds will grow just because he can't see progress. He waters the ground, nurtures the soil, and waits with expectation, knowing that the growth is happening beneath the surface. That's faith in action. He believes in what he cannot see, trusting that in due season the harvest will come. When you hold on to faith, you're making a declaration that goes beyond your current circumstances. You're saying, I may not see it yet, but I believe it's on the way. This kind of faith doesn't require proof, it requires trust. And trust isn't always easy, especially when you're surrounded by uncertainty. It's natural to want to see signs of progress, to have confirmation that you're on the right track. But the reality is that faith operates in the unseen. It's about believing that what's invisible now will become visible in the right time. There's a story in the scriptures about a man named Noah. God told Noah to build an ark because a great flood was coming. At that time, there was no rain, no storm clouds, no evidence that a flood was imminent. Can you imagine the doubt and ridicule Noah faced? People must have thought he was crazy building a massive boat on dry land with no sign of a storm. But Noah believed without a sign. He trusted in what God had spoken, not in what his eyes could see. And because of his faith, he and his family were saved when the flood waters came. Sometimes we're in seasons where nothing looks like it's changing. The dream seems impossible, the promise feels distant, and the circumstances look unchanged. It's in those moments that faith speaks louder than the evidence. Faith says, I trust that the seeds I've planted are taking root, even if I can't see them yet. Faith says, I know there's a plan and a purpose for my life, even if I don't understand it right now. Faith says, I'm going to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead feels unclear. Believing in the unseen requires a shift in perspective. It's about focusing not on what's missing, but on what's possible. Too often we let doubt creep in because we're looking for external validation of what we believe internally. We say, I'll believe it when I see it. But that's not faith. Faith says, I'll believe it even before I see it. It's about having confidence in the promise, even when there's no physical evidence to back it up. The truth is, everything significant in life begins in the unseen. Think about a baby developing in the womb. For months, the growth is hidden from view. The mother can't see the baby, but she knows it's there. She prepares for its arrival, not because she has visible proof, but because she has an assurance that new life is growing within her. That's the power of faith that allows you to prepare for what you cannot see yet. Faith also requires persistence. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment to believe, even in the face of doubt. When circumstances try to shake your confidence, faith says, I'm not moved by what I see. I'm moved by what I believe. This kind of faith is unshakable. It's anchored in the knowledge that the unseen is just as real as the seen, even if it takes time to manifest. There's a refining process that happens when you believe without a sign. It builds character, strengthens resilience, and deepens your trust. You learn to rely not on your own understanding, but on a higher power. You discover that the absence of a sign doesn't mean the absence of progress. In fact, some of the greatest breakthroughs happen when nothing seems to be happening at all. That's because growth often occurs beneath the surface in places you can't see with your natural eyes. Believing in the unseen isn't about ignoring reality. It's about looking beyond it. It's about choosing to focus on what's possible instead of what's missing. It's about holding on to the promise even when the evidence says otherwise. Faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It's the confidence that what you hope for will come to pass, even if the journey takes longer than expected. And when you hold on to that kind of faith, you open the door for the impossible to become possible. Delay is not denial. The simple truth can transform the way we perceive waiting seasons in our lives. Often when things don't happen according to our timeline, we assume that the answer is no or that we've missed out on an opportunity. But the reality is that delay doesn't mean you're forgotten, overlooked, or rejected. Delay is often a sign that something greater is being prepared, something that aligns perfectly with the right time and the right circumstances. The challenge is to maintain your faith and trust while you wait. When a delay occurs, it's easy to become discouraged or to doubt the promises you've been holding on to. You might start to question whether you heard correctly, whether the dream in your heart was real, or whether the door you thought was opening has been shut permanently. But delay doesn't mean the door is closed. It simply means the timing isn't right yet. Timing is everything, and there are countless factors at play that we may never see or understand. Trusting in the timing requires a level of faith that looks beyond the immediate and focuses on the bigger picture. Think about a fruit tree. When you plant a seed, you don't expect to see fruit the next day. There's a process of growth and development that has to take place. First, the roots need to grow deep into the soil to provide a strong foundation. Then the tree begins to grow upward, producing leaves and branches before any fruit ever appears. If you were to give up on the tree during this process, assuming it wasn't going to bear fruit, you'd miss out on the harvest. The same principle applies to our lives. The delays we experience are often seasons of preparation, times when the foundation is being laid for something much greater than we could imagine. One of the most powerful examples of delay not being denial comes from the story of Joseph in the scriptures. Joseph had a dream that he would one day be in a position of great influence and authority. But before that dream came to pass, he faced years of delay. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. It must have seemed to Joseph that his dream was completely out of reach. Yet all the while, God was working behind the scenes, preparing Joseph for the exact moment when he would step into his destiny. Every delay served a purpose, shaping Joseph's character, building his resilience, and positioning him for what was to come. Delay is not wasted time. It's a time of growth, learning, and refining. It's in these waiting seasons that we develop patience, perseverance, and trust. Without delay, we might not be ready for the very things we're asking for. Think about a student preparing for an important exam. They might feel frustrated by the time it takes to study and review the material, but without that preparation, they wouldn't be ready to succeed. The delay isn't a punishment, it's a necessary part of the process to ensure success. When we're in a season of delay, it's important to resist the urge to compare our timeline to someone else's. It can be tempting to look around and think they've already achieved their dream. Why am I still waiting? But comparison only leads to frustration and doubt. Your journey is unique and your timing is perfectly aligned with your purpose. What looks like a delay in your life might actually be the exact timing needed for everything to fall into place. There's also a beauty in the waiting, even though it doesn't always feel that way. Waiting teaches us to trust, not just in the promise, but in the process. It reminds us that we're not in control, and that's okay. The one who is orchestrating our lives sees the bigger picture, the connections and opportunities that we can't yet see. What might feel like a delay to us is actually perfect timing in the grand scheme of things. Delay also gives us the chance to strengthen our faith. When you hold on to a promise during a season of waiting, you're building spiritual muscles that will sustain you in the future. You're learning to trust not in what you can see, but in what you believe. This kind of faith is powerful because it's not dependent on circumstances. It's rooted in the understanding that the delay is not a sign of failure, but a sign of preparation. Even nature teaches us that delay is a part of life. Consider the process of a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. If you were to try to speed up the process to break open the cocoon prematurely, the butterfly wouldn't survive. The struggle to emerge is what strengthens its wings and prepares it to fly. In the same way, our delays are preparing us for the next phase of our journey. The struggle, the waiting, and the process are all part of what equips us to step into our purpose fully prepared. It's natural to feel frustrated or discouraged during a delay. You might feel like nothing is happening, like your prayers aren't being answered, or like the dream in your heart is slipping away. But delay is not denial. It's a sign that something greater is being orchestrated behind the scenes, something that will exceed your expectations when the time is right. Trust that every step, every moment of waiting, and every delay has a purpose. God's silence is not his absence. It's a truth that challenges us in the deepest ways because silence can feel like abandonment. When we're praying, seeking answers, and holding on to promises, yet all we hear is silence, it's easy to assume that we've been forgotten or that our prayers are going unanswered. But silence is not an indication that God has walked away. It's an opportunity for us to trust him in ways we never have before. Silence invites us to lean in, to deepen our faith, and to remember that even when we can't see or feel anything, God is still working. There are times in life when we cry out for direction, for intervention, for a sign that things are going to be okay. And the only response we seem to get is quiet. That quiet can feel overwhelming, as though nothing is happening. But often the silence is where God does his most profound work. Just because you don't hear him doesn't mean he isn't speaking. Just because you don't see the evidence doesn't mean he isn't moving. God works in ways that are often beyond our understanding. And sometimes the silence is a reminder that his ways are higher than ours. Think about a teacher in a classroom. During the lesson, the teacher is actively guiding, explaining, and helping the students understand the material. But when it's time for a test, the teacher remains silent. Not because they've abandoned the students, but because the test is a chance for the students to apply what they've learned. The silence doesn't mean the teacher isn't present. It means the teacher is giving the students the opportunity to grow. In the same way, when we experience silence, it's not a God's absence. It's often a sign that we're being prepared, strengthened, and refined. Silence also has a way of revealing what's truly in our hearts. When we can't hear or see anything happening, we're forced to confront our doubts, fears, and insecurities. It's in those moments that we discover whether our faith is dependent on signs and answers or whether it's rooted in a deeper trust. Silence strips away the distractions and forces us to focus on what truly matters. It's not easy, but it's necessary for growth. In the scriptures, there's a story about the prophet Elijah. He was desperate to hear from God and sought him in the wind, the earthquake, and the fire. But God wasn't in any of those dramatic displays. Instead, Elijah heard God in a still small voice. Sometimes we expect God to speak to us in loud, undeniable ways, but often his voice comes in the quiet and in the stillness. It requires us to pause, to listen, and to trust that even when we don't hear him in the way we expect, he's still speaking. There's a tendency to associate silence with inactivity, but that's not the case with God. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For days, weeks, even months, there's no visible sign of growth, but beneath the surface, the seed is transforming. Roots are forming and the foundation is being laid for something to break through. God's silence often works in the same way. What looks like inactivity is actually preparation. What feels like waiting is actually growth. Silence is also an opportunity to strengthen our trust. When you can't see the path ahead, you have to rely on faith. You have to believe that even in the quiet, God is still leading you. This kind of trust isn't easy, but it's powerful. It's the kind of trust that says, I don't understand what's happening, but I believe you're still in control. It's the kind of trust that refuses to give up, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. There's a refining process that happens in the silence. It strips away our need for constant reassurance and teaches us to rely on the promises we've been given. It reminds us that our faith isn't about what we can see or hear. It's about what we know to be true. Silence forces us to dig deeper, to hold on tighter, and to believe that even when nothing seems to be happening, everything is still under control. It's important to remember that God's timing is perfect. What feels like silence to us is often alignment in his plan. There are connections being made, doors being prepared, and opportunities being arranged that we can't see yet. Just because we're in a season of quiet doesn't mean the plan is stopped. The silence is part of the process, and trusting that process is what faith is all about. Silence doesn't mean God isn't paying attention. In fact, it often means the opposite. It means he's working in ways that require our patience and our trust. It means he's preparing us for what's next, refining our character and teaching us to rely on him. In the silence, we learn to listen in ways we never have before. We learn to trust, to wait, and to believe that even when we can't hear or see him, he's still there, orchestrating every detail with purpose and precision. Keep speaking life over your dreams, even when they seem dormant. Words have incredible power. They shape our thoughts, our attitudes, and the way we see the world around us. Too often, when we don't see immediate progress or tangible results, we begin to speak negatively about our dreams. We say things like, it's never going to happen, or maybe it wasn't meant to be. But every time we speak words like that, we're reinforcing doubt and allowing fear to take root. On the other hand, when we choose to speak life over our dreams, we align our words with faith, creating an atmosphere where growth and possibility can flourish. The words we speak have the power to bring things to life or to tear them down. Think about the process of planting a garden. If you plant seeds but fail to water them, expose them to light, or nurture the soil, those seeds won't grow. In the same way, your dreams need nourishment. They need the encouragement of your words to thrive. Speaking life isn't just about being positive. It's about declaring the potential and the promise of what's to come, even when there's no evidence of it yet. When you speak life, you're not ignoring reality. You're choosing to focus on possibility. It's easy to speak words of discouragement when the circumstances don't seem to match your expectations. But those are the moments when your words matter the most. What you say in the face of adversity has the power to shift your mindset and change the way you approach the situation. Speaking life is an act of faith. It's declaring, I believe this dream is still alive, even though it looks like nothing is happening. There are countless stories of people who spoke life over their dreams when everything seemed impossible. One of the most inspiring examples is the story of Abraham. He was given a promise that he would become the father of many nations, yet for years, there was no sign of that promise coming to pass. Despite the delay, Abraham continued to believe and to speak life over the promise. He didn't focus on the impossibility of his circumstances. He focused on the faithfulness of the promise. When you're in a season where your dreams seem dormant, it's natural to feel discouraged. You might look around and think nothing is changing. Maybe it's time to let this go. But those are the moments when you need to speak life more than ever. Even if your dream feels like a tiny spark, your words have the power to fan it into a flame. You might not see progress right away, but every word of life you speak is planting a seed for the future. It's important to remember that your words not only impact your mindset, but also influence the people around you. When you speak life, you inspire others to do the same. You create an atmosphere of hope and possibility, one that encourages others to believe in their own dreams. Imagine the ripple effect that could happen if you chose to speak life, even in the most challenging situations. Your words could be the catalyst for someone else's breakthrough. Speaking life doesn't mean denying the challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to focus on what's possible instead of what's missing. It means declaring, this dream may seem dormant, but it's not dead. There's still potential here. When you make that declaration, you're not just encouraging yourself, you're creating an environment where your dream can begin to grow again. There's a power in persistence when it comes to speaking life. It's not about saying it once and expecting immediate results. It's about consistently choosing to declare life over your dreams, even when progress feels slow. It's about refusing to give up, even when doubt tries to creep in. Each time you speak life, you're reinforcing your faith and pushing back against the negativity that tries to hold you back. Think of your words as the water and sunlight that your dreams need to grow. Without them, the dream remains dormant, stuck in the soil of doubt and fear. But with consistent nourishment, that dream has the potential to break through, to grow and to flourish in ways you might not even imagine. It's not about how big or bold your words are, it's about the faith and intention behind them. Even when you don't feel like it, speaking life is an act of faith that can shift the course of your dreams. It's a way of saying, I may not see it yet, but I believe it's on the way. It's a declaration that your dream is still alive, still possible, and still worth pursuing. Every word of life you speak is an investment in the future, a step toward the fulfillment of the promise. You might not see immediate results, but the seeds of your words are taking root, preparing for the moment when they'll bloom. Trust the process even when it feels uncomfortable. Life has a way of challenging us with seasons that test our patience, resilience, and faith. During these times, it can be tempting to resist the process, to want everything to happen quickly and exactly the way we envision. But growth often comes through discomfort, and transformation is rarely immediate. Trusting the process means accepting that the journey is just as important as the destination. It's about recognizing that every step, every detour, and every delay is part of a greater plan designed to prepare us for what's ahead. When you're in the middle of the process, it's easy to feel frustrated. You might wonder why things aren't happening faster, why the path seems more difficult than you expected. But growth takes time, and the process is where that growth happens. A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly overnight. It goes through a period of transformation inside a cocoon, a time when it seems like nothing is happening. Yet during that process, incredible changes are taking place. The same is true for us. The process may feel slow, but it's where the real work is happening. Trust in the process requires patience, and patience isn't always easy. It's natural to want to skip ahead to the good parts, to the moments when everything falls into place. But rushing the process often leads to missed opportunities for growth and learning. It's like trying to harvest fruit before it's ripe. The result is never as fulfilling as it could be. When you trust the process, you allow things to unfold in their own time, giving space for the best possible outcome to emerge. One of the hardest parts of trusting the process is dealing with uncertainty. When you can't see the full picture or don't understand why certain things are happening, it's easy to feel anxious or doubtful. But trust isn't about having all the answers. It's about believing that there's a purpose to everything, even when you can't see it yet. Think about building a puzzle. At first, it might look like a scattered mess of pieces that don't make sense. But as you keep working, the picture starts to come together. Trusting the process is like working on that puzzle without always knowing what the final image will be. There are times when the process feels uncomfortable, even painful. You might face setbacks, challenges, or moments of doubt that make you question whether it's all worth it. But discomfort is often a sign of growth. It's like exercising a muscle. The process of breaking it down and building it back stronger can be painful, but the result is strength and endurance. When you embrace the discomfort, you're allowing yourself to grow in ways you couldn't otherwise. Trusting the process also means letting go of the need for control. This can be one of the most challenging aspects because we like to feel in control of our lives. But the truth is, there are many things we can't control. What we can control is how we respond to the process. Instead of fighting against it or trying to force things to happen, we can choose to trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. This kind of trust brings peace, even in the midst of uncertainty. Consider the story of David in the scriptures. He was anointed as king at a young age, but it took years before he actually stepped into that role. During those years, David faced challenges, opposition, and moments of doubt. Yet through it all, he trusted the process. He didn't try to rush the timing or take shortcuts. Instead, he allowed the process to prepare him for the responsibility that lay ahead. When the time finally came, he was ready because he had trusted the journey. The process is often where we learn the most important lessons. It's where we develop perseverance, character, and wisdom. These qualities aren't formed in moments of ease. They're forged in the fire of challenge and growth. Every step of the process serves a purpose, even the ones that feel unnecessary or difficult. When you look back, you'll often see that the process was exactly what you needed to become who you were meant to be. Trusting the process also involves gratitude. It's about finding reasons to be thankful, even in the middle of the journey. Gratitude shifts your perspective and helps you focus on what's going right instead of what's going wrong. It reminds you that every step, no matter how small, is progress. When you're grateful for the process, you're better able to embrace it and learn from it. Finally, trusting the process means holding on to hope. It's about believing that the challenges you face today are leading to something greater tomorrow. It's about keeping your eyes on the bigger picture, even when the present feels overwhelming. Hope fuels your faith and gives you the strength to keep going, no matter how difficult the process may seem. It's the assurance that the journey is worth it, even when you can't yet see the destination. Faith is believing without seeing. It's the ability to trust in what hasn't yet materialized, to hold on to hope even when there's no evidence to support it. Faith isn't about having all the answers or knowing exactly how things will work out. It's about choosing to believe that they will. It's about walking forward with confidence, even when the path ahead is unclear. Faith doesn't depend on circumstances or tangible proof. Instead, it's rooted in the assurance that there's a greater plan at work, one that's often beyond our understanding. Believing without seeing is one of the most challenging aspects of faith. It requires us to let go of our need for control and to trust in something bigger than ourselves. In a world that values evidence and tangible results, faith asks us to step out in confidence without guarantees. It's about trusting in the unseen, in promises that may not yet be fulfilled, and in outcomes that seem impossible. Faith challenges us to look beyond our current circumstances and to focus on the potential for what could be. Think about a farmer planting seeds in a field. The farmer doesn't see the crops the moment the seeds are planted. There's no immediate evidence that anything will grow, yet the farmer trusts the process, believing that with time, care, and the right conditions, the seeds will sprout and produce a harvest. In the same way, faith is about planting the seeds of belief and trusting that in due time they will bear fruit. Even when there's no visible progress, the farmer continues to water and tend to the soil. That's what faith looks like, acting on what you believe, even when you don't see the results right away. Faith also requires patience. When things don't happen as quickly as we'd like, it's easy to become discouraged. We might start to doubt whether the promise will ever come to pass. But faith reminds us that timing is everything. What seems like a delay is often a period of preparation. It's in the waiting that we grow, learn, and develop the strength needed to handle what's coming next. Faith isn't just about believing in the outcome, it's about trusting the process that leads to it. One of the most inspiring examples of faith in action is the story of Noah. He was asked to build an ark in preparation for a flood, even though there was no sign of rain. Imagine the faith it took to start building a massive boat when everyone around him likely thought he was crazy. Noah didn't wait for visible proof before acting. He trusted in the promise and moved forward, even when it didn't make sense. His faith wasn't based on what he could see, but on what he believed to be true. Believing without seeing also means letting go of the fear of failure. It's natural to hesitate when there's no guarantee of success. But faith isn't about avoiding risk, it's about stepping out boldly, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's about saying, I may not know how this will turn out, but I trust that it's worth trying. Faith allows us to take chances to pursue our dreams and to move forward despite the uncertainty. It's not about eliminating fear, but about choosing to act in spite of it. Faith also invites us to shift our focus. Instead of fixating on what's missing or what hasn't happened yet, faith encourages us to look at what's possible. It asks us to envision a future that's better than our current reality and to believe that it's within reach. When you operate from a place of faith, you're not limited by what you can see. You're free to dream bigger, to hope for more, and to pursue goals that might seem out of reach. Believing without seeing is a daily choice. It's not something you decide once and then never struggle with again. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when the lack of visible progress makes you question whether your faith is misplaced. But faith isn't about never doubting. It's about choosing to believe even in the face of doubt. It's about holding on to hope when hope feels like the easiest thing to do is to let go. Faith also has the power to inspire others. When people see you believing in something greater, even without tangible proof, it encourages them to do the same. Your faith becomes a light in the darkness, a reminder that it's possible to hope and to dream even in the most challenging circumstances. The ripple effect of your faith can touch lives in ways you may never fully realize. Ultimately, faith is about trust in a plan that's bigger than you, trust in timing that's often different from your own, and trust in the idea that what you're believing for is worth it. It's about choosing to move forward, to take steps, and to hold on to hope even when the evidence isn't there. Faith doesn't eliminate challenges or guarantee an easy path, but it gives you the strength to keep going, to keep believing, and to keep hoping even when you can't yet see the outcome. Ladies and gentlemen, believing without a sign isn't always easy, but it's the foundation of faith. It's about trusting in something greater, even when we can't see it, feel it, or touch it. It's about walking forward with confidence, knowing that the process is working even in silence. So let us continue to speak life over our dreams, trust the process, and hold on to faith even in the face of uncertainty. Because when we believe without seeing, we align ourselves with a power greater than ourselves, and nothing is impossible with faith. Keep believing, keep trusting, and watch as your dreams begin to unfold in ways you never imagined.